for Heaven by Ewart A. Autry. The Grim Reaper was coming for Grandpa. His heart was signaling him that his life was over, or would be before nightfall. Looking around the place, he decided there were a few things that needed fixing before folks came over for the funeral. It was 10 o'clock on a hot June morning when Grandpa Hawkins decided he was about to die. He didn't tell anyone just then, but Grandma knew something went wrong when she saw him grab the lawnmower and start cutting grass. Just a few minutes before, she'd seen him playing with 5 of the grandchildren in the shade of the big apple tree. The yard had needed mowing for 10 days. She'd mentioned to him several times without visible results. It wasn't like him to suddenly leave the cool shade and go to work just as the sun was getting hot. She put on her glasses and watched him through the window. Even the grandchildren had left the apple tree and were standing, staring at him in amazement, but he wasn't paying any attention to them. He wasn't noticing anything except the grass. The dog flopped down in front of him and almost got his tail mowed before he could get out of the way. Grandma smiled and went back to her work. "That won't last long," she said to herself. "He'll be back under the apple tree in no time at all." But when she looked out an hour later, the yard was almost finished and he was still doggedly pushing the mower as if nothing else in the world mattered. A puzzled frown creased her forehead. It always worried her when Grandpa failed to run true to form. It usually meant that some unheard-of scheme was forming in his mind, like the time he went deer hunting on stilts and fell in a hole, or the time he dressed like a woman and killed a buck and got his picture in the county paper, or the time he took the dewjingle off her hat and used it for a lure to catch the biggest bass ever caught in the county, or the time he'd become the first skin diver in the county and scared the daylights out of the fishermen up the river. News had circulated there was a strange creature in the river, and folks had come from miles around to see the monster of Corkscrew Bend. No, sir, Grandma had never found life dull with the little sawed-off man with the bristling mustache who was now so industriously mowing the yard. It is little wonder that she worried as she saw him finishing up the last corner of the yard. There might be something bubbling in his head that would have the whole county laughing. Sometimes his weird ideas had proved downright embarrassing. In a moment, however, she smiled again. "He's probably planning another fishing trip," she said to herself, "and wants to leave with a clear conscience." When the yard was finished, Grandpa came into the house. "Take a peep at the yard, Ma," he said, "and see if it satisfies you." "I was watching you," she said. "Seems to me you did a fine job." "Mighty few men and no boys at all could bear it," he said chiefly. "Why did you take such a sudden notion to cut it?" she asked curiously. "I've been reminding you that it needed cutting for several days." "I don't do things when folks keep reminding me to do them," he said testily. "That's plain nagging. I cut it because I got to thinking I'd hate for a crowd to come in and see the yard looking like a rabbit's den." "Well, it looks nice, but I don't suppose there'll be a crowd coming in," she responded. "There may be a crowd coming in before you know it," he said significantly. "You've never before seemed to care what the neighbors thought about the yard," Grandma remarked. "You've always said if they didn't like it, they didn't have to look at it." "There comes a time when a man starts caring for things," he said. "Where's the hammer?" "In the hall closet, where it always stays," she said. "What do you want with it?" "You always have more questions than I have answers," he snorted. "But if you must know, I'm aiming to fix that back screen door." She stopped dusting and looked at him closely. "Are you feeling well, Lem?" she asked. "Maybe I am, maybe I'm not," he said. "If I am, it's my business, and if I'm not, it's the same." Grandma smiled and went back to her dusting. For 40 years she had been accustomed to his crusty, belligerent ways, and knew that beneath that rough exterior there was a faithfulness and tenderness of heart that had made life with him very wonderful. Folks had always said that she spoke softly like the dripping rain, while he roared like thunder, and that thunder and rain went well together. He pecked away at the screen in silence. There was no muttering, and no sudden explosion, even when he mashed his finger. When it was finished, he called Grandma to see it. "Now, I guess folks won't be saying I just let things go around here," he said. "It's a good job," Grandma told him, "but hardly anyone sees the back door except me." There'll probably be a lot of folks seeing it, he said. They better come, he added vehemently. Lem, have you invited some folks to our house, she asked. If you have, I'd better do a little extra cleaning up. I haven't invited anybody, he said emphatically. But there are times when folks come without being invited. I think I'll shave. Grandma dropped into a chair. Well, that beats all, she said. You just shaved last night, and here you are ready to shave again. I don't know what's on your mind, but there's bound to be something very unusual. Is there a law against a man wanting to shave any time he gets ready? He demanded. Of course not, she said. It's just that I don't understand it. She shook her head slowly and went into the kitchen. He followed her, opened the refrigerator, and took a package from the freezer compartment. Let's have this steak for dinner, he said. But that's those nice T-bone steaks, she said. I thought you were saving them for some special occasion. This is a special occasion, he said. Let's have the T-bones. He scratched his chin for a moment. We could invite Milt Huggins over to eat them with us, he added. Grandma dropped a plate and stared at him in amazement. Now I know there's something wrong, Lem Hawkins, she said. You and Milt Huggins have been feuding for years, and now you're ready to invite him over for a steak dinner? Oh, I guess Milt's all right, he said. He can't help being hollow-headed, simple-minded, and dumb. I ought not hold that agin him. You two are just alike, Grandma said. It's about time you two quit that silly feuding. It makes you the laughingstock of the community. I wonder if he'll send flowers, Grandpa said thoughtfully. What on earth are you talking about, Lem? Grandma asked, now completely baffled and beginning to wonder if perhaps Grandpa was a little touched in the head. I was just wondering if Milt would send flowers to my funeral, he said simply. Did you get too hot out there helping the kids catch bugs and things for their circus, she demanded. If I got too hot at all, it was in mowing the yard, he said shortly. Anyhow, my heart was acting up before I cut the grass. Your heart, cried Grandma in alarm. Yes, my heart, he said. It's been thumping and jumping and cutting all sorts of shines. I'm sure I'll go to glory this very day. That's why I thought I'd better cut the yard and fix the screen. If it goes suddenly, there'll be a crowd in to sit with you. Grandma was already pulling off her apron. You're going to the doctor, Lem, she said firmly, and you're going at once. Now hold your horses, woman. I aim to eat some of that T-bone steak before I go anywhere. Even when a man's going to the electric chair, he gets to choose his last meal. Well, I choose T-bone steaks, and T-bone steaks I aim to eat. No use to leave 'em around for somebody else to gobble up while I'm lying in the dirt. I think I'll read a chapter in the Bible while you're finishing dinner. He started for the next room, but stopped in the door and turned. That's what I'm talking about, he said solemnly, pointing toward the region of his heart. You can see it acting up even through my shirt. Grandma took one look and burst into tears. Oh, Lamb, she sobbed. We had such a good life together. Just then Johnny, the 6-year-old grandson, ripped into the room like a tornado. I want my frog, Grandpa, he cried. Your frog, Johnny? Questioned Grandpa. I don't know anything about your frog. It's in your shirt pocket, Grandpa, said Johnny. I put it in there this morning. Grandpa looked at the boy for a moment, then reached into his shirt pocket. His face brightened, then broke into a broad grin. So that's what's been thumping and jumping and acting up, he said. Did you hear that, Ma? He half shouted. It's not my heart at all. It's just this ornery little frog. Here, take your frog, boy, and get out of here, he said as he tousled Johnny's hair. Grandma dried her tears, laughed, and hugged Grandpa all at the same time. Bless that frog! Bless that frog, she said over and over. Ought to kill the ornery rascal, Grandpa snorted. He sure heaped a lot of work on my shoulders. He scratched his chin for a moment. And about Milt Huggins, he said slowly, we'll just feed him some other time.